You're listening to What She Grows Through, a podcast dedicated to empower and uplift Black women to grow their self-worth. I'm your host, Chanel Amir, one of many dope Black women, creating a community for us to pour into and align with one another, uncovering our true feelings from sexuality to self-love, to begin growing through life and evolving into our best authentic selves. Let's get started. What's up, beautiful people? It's your girl, Chanel Amir, and welcome to another episode of What She Grows Through, the podcast that celebrates Black women's empowerment, growth, and resilience through mindful conversations. And I'm beyond excited to introduce today's special guest, the incredible Sozubi. She is a fierce entrepreneur, and I like to use the word fierce because that's what she is. Fierce entrepreneur, an author, and a true beacon of just inspiration for Black women everywhere. She is the creator of the powerful book series Survival, which has touched the lives of so many sisters on their journey of self-discovery and healing. In this episode, we dive deep, deep into the world of self-care, boundaries, and we discuss the importance of just healing from generational traumas to truly grow and thrive as Black women in today's society. Zoo generously shares her own story and the inspiration behind her transformative book and workbook. And it's a guide designed to help Black women like us navigate our way to discovering our authentic selves. And I'm just so grateful for the connection that we made. So I couldn't think of a better time than the blooming season of the upcoming spring to share this deep conversation with all of you, my amazing listeners. So sit back, relax, and let's blossom together as we explore the magic of healing, of growth, and empowerment with the phenomenal Sozubi. Listen in. What's up, beautiful? It's your girl, Chanel Amir, back again with the latest episode of the What She Grows Through podcast. I'm excited. I'm nervous too.
Don't be.
Because I just was looking over at you and you're like, just so cute. But we have the beautiful Zoo. She is an author, influencer, coach, wife, and a Black woman. And I have the pleasure of, knowing her a little bit. But we about to get to know each other way more. So, Zoo, welcome to What She Grows Through.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love that. So, before we even get into it, like how was your day? Like how are you?
I mean, I'm excited.
It's a Monday,
right? It's a Monday. I'm excited because I'm here. Things are going well with the book. But because of this interview, I forced myself, like, you know what? Just chill. Because I didn't want to come into this like super anxious. So all morning it's just kind of been like, chill. Whatever happens. Just go with it. You know what I mean? Because that's part of my journey now. Like just kind of letting things go, because otherwise I'd be an anxious mess, right? I'm still a little bit like nervous being on camera with you, but like, I'm mentally and emotionally prepared to be here with you today.
Oh my goodness. And it's crazy because I feel the same way. It don't matter if I'm recording by myself. As soon as I start, like, I press record, I get like real anxious and just like, I really have to tell myself to calm down. Like, Chanel, you all right. So when you're talking about just letting it flow, that's what we need to start doing. And I feel like we're learning, and so much is coming out of that by just letting things flow and handling it as it goes. But I think that's just that mindset, like just all of that.
Yep. I keep seeing
so
online.
Let's just jump in it. Go ahead. What
Right.
were you saying?
I was gonna say I keep seeing online everybody's talking about like mindset shift, and all of that. And I'm like, I mean, it's really real. You know what I mean? I
Really?
didn't recognize that's what it was, but my mind literally shifted and it changed
Until
the
you
way I
get
look at
into that,
everything.
you feel the shift. That's when you
Hmm.
can actually like
Yep.
wow, this shit is wow, for real, for real.
It is. It really is. Like the things that used to bother me, now I just kind of be like, oh wow, it happened. Like let's.
That's on you,
Right.
basically.
I can't explain it, but it's it's real.
So let's just I want to talk about your origin story. Well, not let's not even get into that. Let's talk about just who you are right now. Who are you, Zoo, in this moment, and how do you feel yourself expanding?
In this moment, in this moment, peace, right? And that's a big thing for me because I feel like before recently, my life was just chaos, right? All of these different scenarios and all of these different areas of my life, just trying to juggle everything, and then just giving myself space to put myself first, um, allowed me to just kind of sit with myself and find peace. And it feels good, right? And with expanding that, I really, really want to be able to be consistent with this, right? Because just because we transition into something doesn't mean that we don't sometimes fall back, right? So I revert back sometimes, but like I said, expanding is just seeing how far I can grow with peace and being completely at peace with everything in my life.
Nice, nice. So that's the expanding part, okay. But who is it underneath that? Just a little
Underneath,
bit. Who is this woman expanding? Who are you in this moment? Who do you feel you are?
um, I feel like I'm the best version of myself.
Nice.
Figuring out what that looked like is where I am now. And letting go of things allowed me to do that.
Right.
Right. So I'm definitely the best version of myself I've ever seen. And I still have so much further to go. So it's exciting, right? Because I'm like, oh, it's only up from here. Like I already feel like I'm kind of high. So
I love that. No, I feel it. And you're saying that just yeah, the best version of yourself, uh, learning, you realize there's just so much knowledge out there, and because you're on this level, it's like what was I doing before? Like what the
right.
hell? Like, well, I don't even know. I don't even know. I was just basically, I guess it's you weren't conscious, I guess. Like you was
Right.
literally just like on autopilot or something. But now
Literally.
just being aware of that and just getting the chance to decide like who you want to be and who
Yeah.
you want to be around, and just a bunch of things.
Right. And that's creating space for yourself.
Mm,
You
right.
know what I mean?
Because we wasn't
We
really
don't.
doing much of
Mm-mm.
that.
Mm-mm. Like you said, autopilot. We're just doing what we know, what we're used to, what feels normal, what feels safe. And at some point, I really think millennials are breaking, you know what I mean? They're millennials. We are creating space for ourselves and challenging societal norms and
Because we're
leading the
not with
way.
it. We're not. We
Mm-mm.
know how it is, and it doesn't work. It doesn't, and we realize all the trauma that how it was going. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
not. No, no.
Right.
And I'm not about to just sit here and do what they say the black family does. What happens just happens, and you
Right.
just
So
gotta
you know what
deal with
I say? That every generation is responsible for breaking a generational curse, right? We've been through so much as a culture that one generation can't fix it all. And I always say that in my family lineage, that my parents broke that poverty had on our family. So me and my siblings grew up pretty privileged because my parents positioned themselves so that we did not have to struggle, right? But
it.
they worked so hard to provide for us that they had no time or space emotional and mental connection, right? And so here I am, because I've grown up with the things. I don't see the world like some of my peers because they're getting these nice things that I'm used to having. And I'm just looking at the
Right.
world from this mental and emotional, you know what I mean? And I'm challenging the things that my parents did and said and taught us. And they feel like I'm calling them bad parents, but that's not the case. I'm grateful for what they could provide for us, right? But now I feel like it's my turn to take the torch and break this generational curse or hold that mental health, you know what I mean, and lack of emotional intelligence has on our culture. My parents did it with poverty. Thank you. You taught me how to hustle, get money, survive, right? But now it's my
Right.
turn. My turn. And I think that's a hard shift for them.
The, See, that's why I had you on the show, because like a lot of the things I'm watching you as your story is unfolding, and there's just so many similarities. But then the thing is, a lot that's what happens with a lot of us black women, all these similarities. And like you're saying, us millennials, we ain't trying to we're trying to heal. We ain't
Yes.
about to just continue to be stuck in what that's the fixed mindset. That's the there's just so many different words that you can put in front of mindset that is right. But we
Right.
want to be on a growth mindset. We want to just continue to to grow. We're not trying to be
Absolutely.
stuck doing that because it didn't work. Now look,
It didn't.
I definitely understand, and I'm just taking it as in, even with my kids, like in terms of parenting, like the way I got to talk to my mom, like, I'm sorry, but the way you parent is not the way that I parent my kid. And it's, you have to respect me because these are
Right.
my children. So if I
Uh-huh.
choose for you to not hit them or not do certain things,
Right.
that's what we're going to do. So I find myself definitely challenging people when it comes to my views and how I want to do things, cuz that way didn't work. Like
Right.
we're not doing that these
And
over
you
these
know,
parts.
it's funny. I know for a fact that my parents recognized what their responsibility was in their generation, because both of my parents challenged my grandparents. You know what I mean? So
They
I'm
forget
like,
that part though.
right, right. And so I'm like, so I watched my grandparents finesse y'all out of y'all boundaries my whole childhood, and now y'all mad at me because I won't let y'all finesse me out of mine. Like,
They still do
I
it to
thought
this
y'all would
day though, to
understand.
this day. And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna let grandma relax. She needs to calm down a little bit. When she's okay, then I could talk to her. Like, but listen, that's on her.
Right.
Look at me. I'm telling you, I can resonate.
And you know what? That's honestly what made me decide to move forward with this project. Honestly, so you and I weren't connected online at this time, and it was back in like 2017 to 2019. I was falling apart all over the internet, but I had no idea because I was in it, so I didn't see it. Right, so some things happened, things escalated, and I started looking at things and getting closer to my sister circle and building connections and realizing that I wasn't the only one that was going through these things, but society told us we can't talk about it. And if we can't talk about it, we can't heal from it. So I started having these conversations more frequently, right? And so I'm like, the only way that we can fix this is if we, I said, and because I know so many stories about so many Black daughters in Pittsburgh, I said, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb. I can't tell everybody else's stories because everybody isn't where I am right now. But I can put
Mm-hmm.
myself out there and show you guys you are not alone, right? And it is okay to go against what our parents taught us because everything they did wasn't right. Upset about it. We just want to do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely am not doing what I'm doing with the intent to hurt anyone. It's literally just to put myself out there and say, hey, look, as a Black woman, these are the things that I am going through. These are the things that I got through, and these are the things that I still have to get through. And for me,
Right.
it was important to start doing this while I'm still in it versus giving you guys a victory story later and not letting you guys see how hard it was to get to that point. Because I
But
think
you're
on the
sharing the
internet,
journey though.
right. And that was important to me because I didn't want to be this big success story. And then I pop out like, oh, I'm healed and blah, blah. And then you guys don't get to see all that it took. And I have literally been taking everybody with me on this journey. And I'm just so grateful for the people who stuck with me, even when I didn't deserve it. Because let's be real, I was a mess, right? But I had to take some time to become more self-aware, right? A little bit more emotional intelligent, so that I can start things more appropriately, right? So that those are the things that I was able to learn in those experiences and what I'm grateful to walk away with, because I've never been wrong for how I felt, but I've often been wrong in my delivery.
And that's
You know what I
real.
mean?
Yeah. So now it's just basically trying to figure out how you can share it or communicate it more effectively, but
Mhm.
being, strong on how you feel and your
Mhm.
values and how you show up.
Right.
So you just dove right in, and you was just dropping gems, and we ain't even we're feeling you, and we don't even know what's going on for real, for real. So can you just start us off where, like, well, how did Zoo get here? Like, what is your story?
Um, Zoo got here. Um, Zoo got here because of the pandemic. Right here, pandemic. That was like what
Listen,
catapulted,
we
pushed,
all yeah,
right?
agree.
Because that was the time I had to sit with myself, and I did not like what I saw when I looked in the mirror. You know what I mean? And I had to figure out why. And I realized there was nothing wrong with how I felt. I just didn't. I was starting to not be comfortable with the way that I was expressing those things. So, like I said, I had to do the work. Um, and all of that came after years of medical trauma. So a lot of people have been asking me to write a book since a medical experience I had back in college. And so when I planned to do this, that's what everybody thought this was going to be about. But it was always important for me that people understand that my life was so much more than the multiple sclerosis diagnosis that I got at 19 years old. Mainly because I grew up with so much privilege that people assume that the only trauma I had ever experienced in my life was that diagnosis at 19, when that wasn't the case at all. Which was why when I created the survival series, I decided to go back to my childhood and open it up with the traumas that I experienced before I even got to high school.
That's where it all starts, though. That's where
Right.
it starts with that.
Literally. And going through that and realizing just how much, I had went through as a child and how much of it had a direct impact on my character development, you know what I mean? And who I was becoming in adulthood. I was like, okay, some things have to change. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
literally had to take the time with myself to understand. And it was ugly, right? My body physically went through that with me. Like, you know what I mean? I had lost 30 pounds during the pandemic. It was terrible. But the clarity that I've been able to gain, you know what I mean? The thoughts that I've been able to put on paper to share with you all to help get you guys through these experiences has been so rewarding, right? So I get that MS diagnosis in college. This was 2009. Graduate in 2011, 2012 I moved out, 2013 I bought a house, 2016 I found out I have a brain tumor and I had to have brain surgery. And I had brain surgery. And then that same year that I had brain surgery, I believe was the year that I lost 3 childhood friends in 1 week. My dad's best friend committed suicide. Another childhood friend died from gun violence in that year, like that entire year. And that was what made me start going back to, because I'm like, this is not normal. You know what I mean? It was a
Right.
significant amount of trauma in a shorter period of time. And it literally changed the way I was looking at the world. Granted, I saw the world completely different with the MS diagnosis, because me becoming an adult looked a lot different than my peers, because now I have this disability to, maintain. But experiencing and being aware of that much trauma at one time, it literally forced me into, why is this happening? What happens now? What do you do when this keeps happening? Does it ever stop? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And after that was when I really started to challenge things. It was boundaries, right? But in our culture, boundaries are disrespect. They don't like that, right?
Right. Like what?
Yeah, I've had boundaries my entire life, and I've always been punished for them. Because you can't set boundaries as a child.
Like,
I'm comfortable with this. I don't want to do this. They don't care. Do what they say.
so let's just, I feel like there's a lot to take in. Like some of the stuff that you're saying, I don't even know like what the response to say, just because it was just so good. And I like that you're so clear, but you had to get to that point because it was burnout. You were doing so much, we were doing so much, the strong Black woman just taking it to the head, like just continuing on. And then when the pandemic happened, the world stopped and we had to figure out, whoa, that's when space was created for us, time to sit down and slow down. Like we had to sit our ass down, basically. Right?
Listen, I always say, I
like
feel
you
like
said, look yourself in the mirror.
the world shut down for me. That's what I always say. I needed that. When the world shut down and everybody was panicking, I was sitting in the house like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. Like literally, when the world started to open back up, I was like, already? Like,
right.
I
like
on punishment.
This.
Right. I was like, I like being on punishment. Like, we can stay in a little longer.
Right. And I still see some social media. They're like, the world just needs to stop again. Like, can we just do that again?
I feel like every
that's
5
where
years.
a lot of Black women just started. We were sitting down, started taking in that mental health piece.
Yep.
And now look at us all just putting in that work, but it goes back to childhood. Like I have a mental health background, like psychology, sociology, because I was trying to understand my mom. She till this day, she has major depressive disorder. So just trying to figure that out. That's the route that I took. But then, they wasn't paying
right.
you much. So I had to do what I had to do on the end. But now it's coming back where I get to do it the way that I want to do it and have these conversations, because Black women, we need to be able to come together and create that space for one another to just share what we really have to grow through. And it goes to the childhood. I feel like we're the first generation that's actually looking into our childhood on our own and realizing that that's where the issues are, and we're trying to heal that child. Like, but then we're also mindful of how we show up. I know for me in my children, and then how we are as a person, how we just show ourselves to other people, because it's just not it. Like that, I think that's just what it is. Like it's just not, and we're just meant to just bloom, and now we're starting to figure out how to do that. So replanting ourselves, continuing to nourish ourselves. Like we realize that we got to do this shit ourselves, and then tell other people how to do it. If they see us nourishing ourselves, then that's the only thing that you can do for me, or you can't. Like, what are we doing?
Right. Trust me, I absolutely get it. Like, and what you were saying about we're the first generation that is like looking into our childhood, I made the mistake of, and I don't think it was a mistake for me, but just assuming that I could fix other people's problems. But not only did I go back to my childhood, I've dug into my parents' childhood, because my parents were children when they conceived me. You get what I'm saying? So they were traumatized. Right. It happened before my childhood. Something happened. You know what I mean? My parents were two traumatized teenagers and had a baby. You get what I'm saying? Like, that is
Right.
heavy. Because I don't know about you, but I remember in high school there were girls that were pregnant and they had daycare in the school and all of that. That wasn't my story because I knew that that was my mom's story, and I just kind of was like, I don't want that.
You don't want, you see what it is that you know for sure, like, I at least don't want that. So but that's still programming you though, programming your mind that like, this is not what that's not what I want. But sometimes people go back to the stuff that they don't want. Like,
Right.
even with my mom, she was young. I was at my mom's high school graduation, and my mom suffered from, just the men, and how her mom treated her. Like, she felt like she was the black sheep. I had her on the show because I really, like you said, listen, girl, we gotta
My
do
mom
something.
felt like
This
the black
is
sheep in
too
her
much.
family
Like,
too.
we're
Our
aligning
lives
a
are
little
so
too
parallel.
much. Like, and it's all folding like on camera. So this is good because we're going to take this and then look back a year from now, like, look at us,
Seriously.
like,
And I'm just listening to your
connecting
story and
and
I'm
stuff.
like, this is so similar to my experience. Cause like I said, here's where it's really, really traumatic. Not only was I conceived when my parents were teenagers, they conceived, carried, delivered, named, and buried a baby before I was even conceived. They were young. Like, I think my mom was 16 when that happened. And right after she recovered, she was pregnant with me. And I always tell people, my mom was grieving when I was in her womb. I always knew, but I never thought about it. But because of where I am in life now, I realize how much of that I've carried my entire life.
It was
Think
it was
about your mother's
programmed in
womb.
you, in you.
Literally.
Do you got a mental health background?
No, but I have been,
What is going on?
well, people have honestly, so I've always had an interest in it, right?
Okay.
And I have been encouraged recently to go back to school to get a degree. And I'm like, I
You
don't,
don't even got to get a degree at this point.
yeah,
Like,
my like I have my bachelor's in business, did that right after high school. But like I'm cool with like, um continuing education, certifications and stuff like that, but
yeah,
I'm not
of
going back for a
course.
full degree.
I'm not
Um
going that. That's how I felt. Like, no, because in order to be like a psychologist and all of that, you got to continue. And I was done with school. Like,
yeah, I
it's
have no
just
desire. And then two, so I realized that I know that I'm not, because of my health and knowing my boundaries, I couldn't
right,
be a therapist because I can't carry all of that. You literally have to. I couldn't do it. I have major depressive, generalized anxiety, multiple sclerosis, personality changes from the brain tumor. Like, I'm juggling a lot. And that was why I decided that the way that I could help people would be by telling my story, right? And the things that have
right.
helped me get through these experiences. Now, what ended up happening was, and I know you didn't ask, but I don't know if you knew. I'm gonna tell you anyway.
Okay,
What ended up happening
go for
was
it.
I wrote the memoir. I let one of my girlfriends read my transcript, and she will start anyway. She couldn't finish it. She goes, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "This is so good. I'm gonna have to go to therapy twice a week. You really helped me unpack." She's like, "Damn, now I'm questioning everything." And I'm just kind of like, "Oh my gosh." So when she said that to me a year ago, I said, "Well, it's doing what I wanted to do in the sense that it's challenging the way people are viewing their experiences." I said, "However, her saying that now she got to go to therapy twice a week," I said, "that scares me because I feel like it's dangerous to put that kind of content out there without considering how it's going to be received." So when I got done with that transcript, I decided to create a workbook because I'm like, at the very least, they can have a resource or an outlet of something to kind of to turn to while they have this, versus reading my story and then just going in the world. You know what I mean? So I held off with the memoir. The memoir has been done. That's what people wanted because they think it's a tell all, but mental health was a priority for me. So I literally I fine tuned this workbook. I had several mental health professionals review it. They've all endorsed it. I was actually surprised, honestly, because I don't have a mental health background. I didn't know what I had until the professionals told me, "Do you realize what you're sitting on?" And I'm like, right? But one girlfriend's a therapist, and she said, "Well, I know this was for like your book series, but like, how about we market the workbook to therapists for our clients because we need it?" And I was like,
Right.
"Wait, what?" You know what I mean? And that was when I was like, "Okay, I really got to get it together." So I was very strategic in how I've been positioning this project because while everybody's looking for the missing pieces to the drama they saw online over the years, that's not my priority. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not what that is. Of course, I'm going to, say what happened and explain, kind of how I was able to get through certain scenarios, but that's not the priority. I want you guys to really see how these experiences changed the lives of everybody around me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
What that looks like, the consequences for these decisions. Like I wanted it to be raw. But I wanted it to be very, very, very intentional.
Right.
And that was why, like I said, I refused to put the memoir out without the workbook. Like right now, you can't even get the memoir by itself because, like I said, I feel like I would be doing a disservice to the
Right.
culture to just drop all of this traumatic stuff and be like, go to therapy. You know, not cool.
And the thing is, that's exactly how I felt because I before going into the entrepreneurial journey, I was a mental health therapist, basically, for children and their families with autism.
Okay.
So, well, different mental health issues, but or disabilities, but mainly like my specialty was autism. So just being in these kids and families' homes and actually seeing it. And I was pregnant with my son like during the time, and just a lot of mental health was going on with me and my
Mm-hmm.
son's father while I'm trying to help other people. Like, I understand what you're saying. Like, it's a lot to take in when you're not even all the way there yourself. Like, but it's just it's a lot. So
Or if
I
you
can
don't even
resonate.
realize you have issues.
Right.
Because
And the only reason why I feel like I can is because I've always been curious. I've always been into that. So I'm like, why is this happening?
right.
Like, I can't continue to do this.
What made me start paying attention to that is was diagnosed with MS when I was 19. I started seeing an MS specialist maybe a year or two later. And when I was seeing him for like a year, I ended up having a relapse. And none of the treatments were working. Like I wasn't getting better. And finally, the neurologist said, we have to refer her to psychiatry. She's suffering from depression. That's why she's not getting better. And I was like, huh? And I literally had to see a psychiatrist and they had to treat the depression for my physical symptoms related to MS to improve. And I was like, okay, so all of this stuff is tied together. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
Everything, because your thoughts are everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm I'm glad you said that. Because now we're realizing that like we have the ability to create the life that like we want to live despite the trauma, because
Mm-hmm.
now we're mindful that our thoughts are everything.
Right.
Like, when thinking a little deeper on it, at like every thought that's been in physical form, like everything in physical form was a thought. If you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, like it started from someone's mind, right?
Right.
So it's crucial that we got to continue to remind ourselves that the everything that we think about, because we're thinking, in pictures and all of that stuff, but
Right.
we got to be careful. We have to protect what we think about. We got to protect our mind, and we got to
Right.
use it wisely. And that it goes all the way down to like your subconscious. Like, your subconscious is present 90% of the time. We're only conscious 10% of the day. Like,
Yep.
every time that we're in our heads, we're in our mind and all of that, like that's that. So it's just thoughts just continuing to come
Yep.
in our head, but we got to pick and choose which ones will be useful and which ones where you got to tell the girl to chill out. because you
Mm-hmm.
thinking a little too much. Like, all right, I get it, and we just gonna let that one flow. But we gonna take, that's
Right.
where that awareness comes in. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's crucial when thinking of just everything that we've been through, that you've gone through, that anyone listening has gone through. We just got to remember to focus on what will nourish us. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like being
Absolutely.
aware of that. Our only limitations will ever be, what we are thinking about, like what our own thinking or
Mm-hmm.
our own thinking is our self-limiting limitations. Listen, I'm all over the place, but I'm trying to get it out. Oh,
You are
so
fine, but
yeah,
you're
it's just
right.
empowering to hear stories like yours to, just share, with my community. Just, um, I don't know.
I'm so
We didn't
honored to
even
be
get through
here.
the questions. We were just flowing. Like I didn't even. So that we doing something good.
Right? That's
So
when
like,
it's
can you just?
organic.
It is. It is. So like, in thinking of your personal why, like what pushed you to share your story before you saw how, or maybe that is, you saw how important it was for other people to be able to digest your story, but also have an outlet for them to write down their story too, and their issues and all of that, unpack that by being encouraged and inspired by your story. So is that like part of your why?
Literally, you just explained my why. Like as far as like entrepreneurship, I've been doing side hustles and stuff like that for the longest. And all of these life experiences were happening, during that time, and life just keeps happening, right? And my husband and I had started a mirror business during the pandemic, and it was booming, right? I couldn't believe how fast it picked up, and I was like, but I don't want to do this. I mean, it was, cool, but I was like, but I
Yeah.
don't want to do this. And I was having a breakthrough with all of the trauma that I was unpacking and going through. And I was like, what if I write a book? And so I just was like, forget mirrors, you know what I mean? And I went full throttle with me being an author as entrepreneurship, and positioning this specifically for women of color to see themselves within my story, right? Nothing's going to be identical, but I mean, think about how parallel our stories are.
Right.
But to see the whole picture, right? Because I think a lot of times we leave things out, because there are still some things that there are shame for, you know what I mean? Like, and I
Or
just
that we're
felt like,
currently like trying to work through right now, that we're not ready to share, but like just getting the courage of other people, you're like, all right, well, she can do it.
right,
Maybe I can, like, get to that point. It doesn't
right,
mean that I gotta hurt, like tell everything, but maybe I
right.
can get to that, like, so it's definitely inspiration for other people to just by all means just start healing,
Mm-hmm. There's the thing, you
because
can't
we
fix it
already
all
know
at
that's
one
there.
time. Yep, you can't fix it
Right.
all at one time. Prioritize what's important for you. You know what I mean? What's having the most negative impact on your life that you need to correct so that you can start to thrive. It's a lot. I tell people this all the time. It was
Right.
not easy for me to get here. I don't want anybody to ever think that when I talk about this place that I'm in, that I didn't have to work my ass off to get here. You know what I mean? Because it hurt. It was ugly. Like, I lost some of the closest people to me, and it hurts when you're grieving those relationships because you really think that you're going to be connected to certain people forever. But when you
Right.
realize that the only thing that's holding you together is trauma, and you're growing out,
Trauma bonds.
yeah, that is so real. It is so real. And the hardest part that people struggle with me being so vocal about is trauma bonding with my parents. I mean, it's real. I love my parents. You know what I mean? I adore my parents. I do not think they were terrible parents. I just think that we could have done some things differently. I know
Right.
that they did the best that they could with what they had.
With the resources that they
But
had
what
then.
I'm saying is, as a young adult, you have to respect my boundaries. You know what I mean? I would love to talk with you through what you're struggling with. You know what I mean? Like I want to have a I literally had to figure out my parents on my own because they still keep so quiet about the things that they experienced in their childhood. You know what I mean? And just keeping that hustle going to keep their mind off of it. I just want us to unpack
It's
it and heal.
yeah, it's not healthy, you
It's
know? But
not.
some people can't see that. But I don't know. It's a little hard to explain, but it's like it's up to them once they figure out, like, if enough is enough for them,
Right,
that's
right.
when they can decide. But that has nothing to do with how you feel, because
Yeah.
you are going to continue to do you, how you've been saying with the boundaries. So did you have a self-limiting belief that you had to grow through with just even getting to your why, or maybe that was trying to stop you, as you were getting to that why?
Yes. And part of it was protecting my parents. I was like, I can't do this because even though they hurt me, I'm still trying to. And I was like, well, here's the thing. I didn't say my parents were bad parents because they weren't. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm just showing that two things can be true at the same time. Because publicly, all the outside people know is that my parents worked their ass off and we had everything. That's true. But guess where my parents was at in order to badass stuff? They was at work. And if they was at work, that means they wasn't with us. I'm not saying my parents was running the streets. They was
Right.
working, right? But we have to discuss what happens when a parent is always working. Again, we understand that that was what they had to do. Millennials are saying, that's not what I want for me and my family. I want to work smarter. I want to put myself in a position where I can make passive income, work and earn a living wage, even if I do it independently, but still be
Right.
present with my children.
That's the thing, being present in the moment as it's happening right now, because these times are so crucial. Just growing up, we see everything is molded with your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be able to experience that anyway, but we're seeing that our parents, yeah, they were. My mom had 2 jobs, like, so she was out of the house, and most of the time once we got a little older, like, we were by ourselves. But
Mm-hmm.
then seeing as how my mom showed up, I could have gotten into a lot of situations because I had a free house,
I did.
but I saw, like, I don't want to be like that, like, but it's just a lot of different things, like the I read in your bio, you were talking about being a parentified child. Like, that's me all the way. But there's a lot that comes out of that, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
I
Wow.
unpacked that in counseling. I had no idea
Right.
how much that had impacted me until I was in therapy expressing, about my relationship with my parents. And I'm telling my therapist, weeks go on, and one day she goes, well, this is your parents' fault. And I go, huh? She was like, they think that you're bossy, but, or they're, I think I'm grown or I'm disrespectful. And she's like, it's because they put you in a position where you were somewhat their equal. They gave you adult responsibilities as a child in their absence. But then when you were in their presence, you were expected to turn it off. And at that age, there's no way you have the emotional intelligence to be able to shift in that way.
Right.
And because I was the oldest and because I had a lot of responsibility, it carried over into everything I've ever done. And I was like, oh, wow. That's like that. You see that Facebook post that's going around right now? It says, why does the oldest daughter in every family think she's a family manager? And I was like, we didn't ask for this.
Because y'all did this.
Yeah, like I didn't ask for this. Like, minding my business, and then they went and kept on having some more kids. And
Luckily, my mom she stopped after my sister. It was too much for her. Like, but still.
not my parents. Look, I'm the oldest of 4 of us. There's 4 of us. Like,
wow. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's just 3 times the trauma, right?
Literally.
But
like I said,
but it all aligns. It all aligns.
It does. It does. And like I said, I think that some of the feedback that I got on the workbook was that it's relatable. And I was so excited to get that feedback because that was my goal. And so when you think about it, culturally, there's a stigma around therapy and mental health. We know that. On my journey, I'm in a place where I can no longer meet people where they are, but I can see you where you are and I can tell you a life, but I can't come down there with you. I could, I can't go back.
I could put my hand, like, like if you want to grab my hand, like.
No, I'm not even doing that. I'm going to throw something over to you. I pulled it, but I don't want, I can't. Because I realized that I was doing that.
Okay.
And every time I would just fall, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I can't. Oh. You know what I mean? Because it's comfortable. It's what I know. So I had to let that go. And so I realized, again, see people where they are, right? And with that, I wanted to create this workbook so that the workbook can meet people where they are. So the entire workbook is created so that it doesn't feel like therapy. You know what I mean? It really challenges you to look at your life, how we look at things we do every day, TV, music, all that stuff. You know what I mean? And kind of relating it to your day-to-day life. Because something that my hairdresser always says is people don't see themselves. Right? And I said, here's what happened with me during the pandemic. I finally started to see myself and I didn't like what I saw.
Right.
And so the workbook helps you kind of look at your life the way that you look at other things. It's easy for somebody to pick out everybody else's stuff because that's what happened to me.
When the spotlight's on you, though.
Yep. Right. And that's what the workbook does.
Reflect it back on you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why it's important to do that self-reflection.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a big deal. Like I said, and it's ugly. Like I said, I don't ever want anybody to think that I expect them to go into this and not come out with.
But it's freeing, though. It needs to happen because you need to unpack that. To be the best version of yourself, you got to know and understand all of you, and you got to heal the parts that are not healed.
Right.
How you're showing up, you might not be aware of. It's trauma. We are literally every part of who we are, who we were. We're still that little girl. Yeah. Like we still have those same emotions when we think about those things, but it's time that we go in there and help that little girl and talk to her and do the inner child work. So it's so important on your self-discovery journey. Like self-discovery is dope.
That's literally what this was.
It's so deep, but I don't even know how. Yeah, the pandemic helped. I go back to the pandemic too. It helped us because we're going hard now because now we know that it's up to us. We get to decide how we want to show up. We get to choose how we want to live. What our definition of success means. We get to choose to live a soft life. We ain't trying to be still going off of childhood trauma issues. Like we trying to grow.
Your mom worked 2 jobs, right? I have literally never seen my mom work less than 2 to 4 jobs my entire life. Wow. 2 to 4.
So yeah, it was just a wrap.
Present day, she has 2 jobs in a business. You get what I'm saying? Like it's ingrained in her. Like, You know what I mean?
That's survival too.
Right. It is. It is. And I don't want that. It's so funny because I talk about it in the book, like about hustle culture and what that does to us
And
and
now
how,
people are starting to know about the burnout. They
right.
didn't
Because
know that it was an actual term of what they were feeling.
me and my sister are like, we don't want to work like mom and dad did. We're grateful, right?
Yes,
But like,
by all
let's work
means.
smarter. I don't want to have to work that hard. And then for me, one of the challenges since my diagnosis was that I was diagnosed with MS when I was 19. They told my parents I would never walk again. That was one of the most traumatic, obviously, experiences of my life. And so I'm a sophomore in college now. I lost my scholarship. I failed a ton of classes. Now I have to appeal to get my scholarship, retake these classes, lower my class load because I'm trying to figure out how to live day to day with this disability. They didn't want me to go back to school or go to work. Like none of that was really an option, but my parents supported me because what was I going to do? Just sit at home? I was like, I have too much life left to live to let this just be it. So fortunately, my parents supported me and I was able to get through school, graduated, moved out a year later, bought a house. Like I did all the things, but I still had to prioritize my health. So I couldn't make the same decisions as my peers because at any given moment, you know what I mean? I could lose my ability to walk. You know what I mean? Not be able to work. And so I've always had to put myself in a position that I'll always be able to survive. Right.
Right.
And I'm finally in a place where, not that I don't have to feel like that, because I still do, but it's not as much as a burden anymore. You know what I mean? And that took a lot of time. Like this is 13 years later. Like 13 years of being worried about if I would be able to.
There's been just pent up. Like that's a lot.
It is.
And just
and that was
think,
just
like,
one.
just your parents. How many years has that been bottled up? You know, I ain't even.
Man, listen. Here's the thing. I wish my parents well. Like I really, really, really want them to go to therapy, you know, for themselves. Like, you know, like I really, because where I'm at right now, I want my parents to feel this. Like I feel like they deserve it. Like
it's the liberation. Like that word, now you understand. Once you actually feel it, then you can understand. Is no other feeling. But it took you to take risks, to step outside of your comfort zone, to get like it didn't matter. All that mattered was you in this moment. Right. And people, they have a hard time. Like I know a lot of us Black women have a hard time focusing on us. Like we don't want to feel selfish. Right. But it is time that we get selfish a little bit. Like, yeah, we're doing so much, but we got to focus on ourselves also, because like they say, you gotta the what is it, the plane, you gotta do your oxygen first,
right,
before you can help someone else.
Man, right? listen and, you know, so I was just realizing all of these things that I had went through, but I didn't realize that how much getting engaged and then getting married would add to it. I was like that's literally, I think, what pushed, because it was like a couple years of, and finally I was like, I exploded. It was too much because I had all my stuff and all the stuff with my parents, and then I got with my husband and we were dating and things were getting escalating and cool, and I'm carrying his stuff and he has kids and I'm carrying our stuff, and now I'm playing stepmom, and then now I can't breathe, like, because there's, you know, I couldn't breathe. And then finally I just woke up one day and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I changed my mind. I don't want to be a stepmom. I don't. And we had to talk about what that would mean and what that would look like. And people chewed me up for it. Do you hear me? I mean, the internet was pissed. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just protecting my peace. I didn't say the man had to abandon his kids. I said, I don't want to be a stepmom. You do what you will with that information. But I'm telling you my limitations, right? These are my boundaries. And people have a hard time accepting me being vocal about what I'm just not going to put a position I'm just not going to put myself in. You know what I mean? If I know, and sometimes it is taken for me to get in it to realize, but that's the thing, I'm allowed to change my mind, right? We're allowed to change our mind.
Exactly. So I don't even know. This has just been just packed with just getting. I feel like it's a therapy session, like, but it's a one-on-one. Like, we got to get these things out, like
Right.
we got to start talking and communicating and sharing space. The what is it, safe spaces, for you to comfortably be able to share your story. And we all have different stories. Like, we all have different perspectives on life.
Right.
While you might look and think that someone else has a good life, you never know what they're going through. It'd be the happiest people that you see them smiling and stuff, like, listen. So you gotta just have grace, have compassion, like, all of that. But, like, in terms of thinking about your own reflection, like, on your journey, how do you feel that aligns with your interpretation of the show, What She Grows Through?
Literally everything, right? So whenever you first started this, my ears were ringing. I'm like, what's she growing through? Is she growing through the same
Right.
stuff as me? So I lied to you not. When I took this writing project seriously, by the time I got done writing and I'm preparing for publishing and all of that, I was like brainstorming launch ideas. And I was like, I'm going to go on a virtual book tour and I'm going to go on all these podcasts. You were on the list. It's just
Okay.
that my plans for the year got derailed because of life, right? And I'm
Right.
finally
It be
catching
life
back up.
in.
Right, life be lifing. And so when you sent the email, I was like, did she know? Like, how did she know? Like, I feel like she knew. So yes, every single last one of these experiences that got me where I am today, I literally had to grow through. And a perfect example of that is in the book, I talk about the challenges that I've had in my marriage, from wife, being a stepmom, just all of the challenges we've had up to, what was it, a year ago. And as much as, I'm not gonna lie, as much as I hated my husband during some of those experiences, the love was still there. And I realized, as messy as a lot of it was, I would not be the woman I am today had I not gone through those experiences.
Right.
Sometimes shit just gotta happen. You know what I mean?
That's the
And
only
I'm
way you gonna learn. Like, you just gotta. It's just, yes.
like, I was mad, and I didn't think we was gonna make it, but you know why we made it? Therapy. Because when both of us were able to go to therapy and recognize that our individual childhood traumas were
Mhm.
preventing us from being able to be completely vulnerable with each other as husband and wife, we had to make a decision.
Right.
Do we want to keep having this friction, or do we really, really want to get to the root of what's stopping us from connecting in the way that we thought we were, right?
Right.
And I'm so grateful for my husband because it took a lot for him to be able to do that, especially as a man of color in the city of Pittsburgh, coming from the lifestyle that he's lived and what his childhood looked like. I'm grateful. I'm grateful because I say all the time, I could work with a man that's trying. And my husband has taken strides. And when he was able to recognize his childhood trauma, the
Mhm.
stuff that he didn't believe was trauma or didn't see as trauma, and really unpack that and let it go as an adult.
As an adult, just doing it, because a lot of Black men are not even aware that they need the therapy.
Right.
So it's starting to
It is. Because,
increase. I'm excited for that. Mental health is starting to be important. I'm happy because it always has been,
right.
right? Wow.
Listen, I'm grateful that he did that. And that's what allowed us to be able to be in this space, because we gave each other space to work on our
Hmm.
stuff. So that, you know what I mean? And it helped. And even in the book, I did not and tend to tell things that I didn't feel like weren't my story to tell. But my husband basically wrote the book with me. I mean, we're here every day together and he's giving me feedback. And there were certain things about his life that he asked me to include because he felt like it was important for the audience to get the full story about
Love
why
that.
I was behaving the way I was as a result of the things that he was doing from shit he didn't unpack. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
literally a domino effect. And he's like, well, you're never going to get it if you don't. So he's like, just put it in there, and so we fine combed through it. And, it's everything's out there in a way he felt comfortable, but he just felt like the closer me and my husband got over the years, he realized that so many people misunderstand me because they don't have the whole story. Because I mean, he had his ideas of me, and he's had people tell him things about me. He'd be like, "I used to think that, but no, that's not the case. She's not like." And I'm just like, "I'm really cool for real. I am. I got boundaries. That's all."
Right, right. I love that, but you're growing through it though. That's the
Literally.
thing. That's the thing. So you're picking and choosing how you want to be. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I love that you're continuing to share your actual version of your self discovery journey, the art of just, us being
Right.
here. We get the opportunity to walk this earth, and choose how we want to show up. I keep talking about that. Like the thoughts that we're capable of having, the feelings that we get to experience, like we need to experience all of those. Our thinking is deep, is limitless. So we got to choose what we want to think about. And that will manifest law of attraction, all of that other stuff,
Yep,
and just
absolutely.
living as we are, in the moment. If we do that, that's when we get to discover, there's just so many new discoveries, basically. And that's where you're saying the level of freedom is beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is.
just in general, discovering who you are yourself when as an adult, when you didn't even know, like that's
Literally.
just something that you can look forward to like every day, and being able to share that with other women.
Right. Because when you think about it,
connected.
right. Because when you think about it, for me, right, and I try to always say I'm speaking for myself, but think about it. Growing up, I didn't really have the freedom to figure out or really be who I was supposed to be because there were certain things that we were conditioned to, you know what I mean? We didn't really have that freedom. And even as a young adult, we still didn't push a lot of societal norms until a certain point. You know what I mean? So that was big for me. That was really, really big for me. And then to go back to your point about like everybody's perspective, this journey has really helped me and my siblings because we all grew up together. We got the same parents. Our perspectives of our parents and our childhood are completely different. There were so many things that were missed amongst us. And it wasn't until I did this and they read it and we started to open up more with each other and things came out and it was like, wow, we had no idea. Right. And then we were able to give each other space. And it's made us so much closer. And like I said, people avoid these uncomfortable conversations, but it's the only way to grow.
Right.
What she grows through. We grow through uncomfortable conversations.
Right. You got to get disciplined in doing that.
Right.
So do you have any other advice that you can give Black women, us Black women, tips that, we can continue to grow through our self-discovery journeys?
Yes. And I'm going to start it with go to therapy, right? I don't know if you've seen that post, right? Hashtag GTT, right?
I'm all old. I just now figured out that's what it was.
Really?
Like Grand Theft Auto or some shit like that. Like,
oh my gosh. Well, no, it's because I used to, again, I was a hot ass mess. And I used to always tell people GTH, go to hell. But then I realized most of the time, whatever reason that I'm saying this to that person is really because deep down they got something to unpack. I said, so it's not my place to condemn them to hell. And I really just want everybody to be better. So I'm going to need
Right.
you to go to therapy. You go to
There you
therapy and
go.
unpack
That's
that. And that's where GTT came from. And I just feel like as Black women, if we give ourselves that space and put ourselves in front of the right therapist, right? I always say, do your research, but
right.
it's liberating. Even if you don't feel like you need it, go. Even if you feel like you don't have any trauma, go. Because I didn't necessarily think that I didn't have any trauma, but I had no idea I was carrying as much as I was. You know what I mean? And letting that go, it frees your mind. And the only way for us to grow is to literally drop
Let
those
it go.
loads. Let it
Right.
go.
Then you
So
become lighter.
therapy,
Right.
GTT.
Of course. And yeah, it's important that we create the time, like, to focus in on ourselves, create that time, and appreciate who we are.
Right.
Um whether it's therapy, definitely I say meditation, getting grounded,
hmm
and
Right.
figuring out, like, again, who you are, of your journey, knowing that it's a lifelong learning journey. Like,
Right.
there will never be a point in time where you're not going to grow. Well,
Right.
you're growing, or like nature, you're either growing or you're wilting away. So
hmm
it's one or the other. So
Right.
which way you choosing, basically, you
Yeah.
know I like that. So I'm gonna end with that. How can our listeners just get in all up in your business if they haven't already?
Oh, so you can find me on Facebook, Sozubi. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as well at Sozubi. And like she said, getting all in the business. Season 1 of this series and the workbook are available as a bundle for pre-order now. I'm super, super excited. So like I said, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sozubi, Sozube.
Period. Right. I love it. And I don't got anything else to say. We could just drop the mic with that.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, it was a goal of mine to get on the show with you and talk about this just because from the moment you started this, I was like, yes, this is directly aligned with what I'm doing. And I think it's important that, the more of us that are finding ourselves on this journey come together as a
Right.
collective and start to
Locally
bring,
also. That's the
right,
thing. Like, sometimes we feel like we don't got it. We don't have that support until we share our story, until we do something, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to connect with other people outside of our circles. But we
right,
still got to remember to have those kind of circles. Like, you got your family, you got your friends, you got your spouse or whoever you're talking to, but then you need, like, your goal friends, you need your entrepreneur friends, you need your
right,
mommy friends. Like, you need people who understand you so that you can be seen in that. So I think that's
right.
dope. But we about to do some stuff because everything is in alignment.
Oh,
um
again, thank you for having me. I'm so
yeah.
excited to see where things
Love.
go for both of us.
Yes, right.
Because, like I said, I've been a fan since of your videography forever. So, like I said, I was like, anything she touches gold.
And that, my beautiful souls, brings us to the end of this inspiring episode with the amazing Sozubi. I truly hope that her words of wisdom and guidance have touched your hearts and inspired you to embrace the healing journey as we all grow through our experiences together. Before we say our goodbyes, I want to remind you that you can connect with Sozubi on her social media platforms at Sozubi and her website at sozubi.com, where you'll also find more information about her book series, Survival, and the accompanying workbook. As for me, your host, feel free to reach out via Instagram and Facebook and through our soon to drop website. Whew, it's been a long time coming, but we getting it together. We're being her now, which requires doing the work. So your girl's been doing a lot of work. But please rate 5 stars and review the show. We love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any suggestions for future topics. And remember, this show is about mindfully empowering Black women, and your voice matters too, beautiful. If you have a story that you like to share or you want to just join us as a guest, please get in touch with us at hello@whatshegrowsthrough.com. And we're just always excited to hear from you and provide a platform, for our sisters, like to share their wisdom, to share these experiences that we have, and just grow together on this journey towards wholeness. Thank you for tuning in to What She Grows Through. Make sure you stay strong, stay empowered, and let's continue to rise and bloom together. I look forward to talking with you again. Until then.